we're ready to tackle our first exercise, which is going to take a closer look at variables and give you a chance to test it out and see how this works. So the first thing you need to do is go into your text or web editor. I'm using Dreamweaver. I also I'm on a Mac, and I do have Text Wrangler that's also on here. That would work just as well. But in Dreamweaver, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do a file new, and I am going to select a PHP file, and I'm going to select create. So in this file, we just simply see HTML code, but we will be inserting PHP and saving this file as a PHP file. So let's add some information first. First thing I'm going to do is update this title, and we're going to do just a little bit of information about us. Those are the kinds of variables we're going to play with. So I'm going to call this about and then my name. Then I'm going to go in between these body tags, and I'm just going to open this up a little bit, personally, because I like to have a little room so I can see what's going on. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up our PHP. So we need to have the left-facing caret, a question mark, and the letters PHP. That'll open it up for us. And then I'm going to just go and I'm going to close this just to make sure that it is closed. The nice thing is in Dreamweaver, you'll get this thing called, it's an error message, but in this case it says there are no syntax errors, which means while it may or may not calculate correctly once we get down the road and are doing some calculations, it doesn't sense any errors in the coding itself. So the first variable that we're going to create, remember it starts with a $sign, is going to be called my underscore name. You can guess what kind of information is going to be going in this. So after that I do the equal sign, quotation marks, and I'm just going to enter my name. I need to put the quotations at the end, and remember at the end of every PHP line we need a semicolon. So that's my first variable. I'm going to go ahead and create another one. I'm going to create all my variables up front, and then we're going to add them and display them. So the second variable is going to be called high school, and we're going to put that in quotes, and I'm going to put the name of my high school. Again, we'll close that with some quotations and a semicolon. And we're going to add another variable. I'm going to call this one $sign graduated. So there's my equal sign, my quotes. This one is a numerical value, because if we wanted to, we could actually do some operators, some addition, subtraction, multiplication, that sort of thing. And the last one is going to be called why here. And this one's also going to be a string. So we're going to say, you're going to give a reason why you're taking this class. Now, one of the things you're going to notice is in these string variables, in the value section, that there are spaces, and you are writing in regular sentence structure, sentence case. And so when it's in the quotes, that's just something that it's going to eventually display on the screen or use whatever is in it. So it can be typed exactly as it's needed. And remember, I close that out with my quotation marks and my semicolon. Now, this isn't actually going to do anything. We're not going to see anything on our screen, even if we were to upload this to our browser. So we need to actually do some things that are going to display this content. So I'm going to go and make a couple of returns, and we're going to be using the echo command. Now, the echo is something you should have read about in your book. Echo and print are the two common commands that are used in PHP to say, hey, display this on the screen. I'm going to be using echo throughout most of these exercises. So here is echo. And in this case, we are going to echo some HTML. Notice that this is in between quotation marks. So there's my code. What I have is the quotation marks, and anything that shows up between the quotation marks is going to be displayed and rendered as the HTML that it is. If it were outside of the quotation marks, it would be looking for something like our variables or something that it could just execute in PHP. And remember, we have our semicolon at the end of the line. So I'm going to go to my next line. In this line, we're also going to echo, and we are going to add a paragraph, and we're going to say, hello, my name is. And I'm going to leave that. This is where we're going to stop. I'm going to put a space here and the quotation marks. Now, the reason I put a space here is because our computers are really quite dumb. So they will execute this exactly like we show it. And so if I don't put a space here, and now I'm going to call up my variable, it would run the word is and my name all right together. In this case, we're doing what is referred to as concatenating, which is a big fancy word for joining together. And how we do that is we need to include these quotation marks so that we are closing out that current string of things that we want to display. And then we put a period. And now we can put the variable. In this case, it's my underscore name. Notice it is not in quotation marks because it is pulling this information is going up here and going, well, what's the value for it? So it will display the value that's contained within those quotation marks. So I'm going to put another space. I'm going to put a period. And because I'm going to put a line break here is why I did another quote. Otherwise, you could leave it at the end. I need to put a line break here. So we're going to do this and the quotation marks and a semicolon. So there's my second line. Now let's go on to our third line of code. And you guessed it, we're starting with echo and we're going to put some stuff in quotations. This time we are going to say, I graduated from space quotations, and we're going to concatenate again. And what is that one? High school. So we're going to type high school, period, and a quotation in space. Notice we have spaces on either side of this in, period, and we need to find the variable called graduated, which would be the year, and a period, and a quotation, and I'm going to do another line break here, and that. There's our third line. Let's do our last one. So now we're going to echo again. We'll say, I am here because space, and we're going to concatenate in our last variable. Okay, let's put our, let's get our, finish our concatenation because we have to close this paragraph tag that's up here. So we will put that at the end. And close that and our semicolon. And it's telling me in Dreamweaver here, I have no syntax errors, so at least I know that part's working. So what I've created here are variables with values, and then down in my, the next lines down, I'm echoing that same content, but I'm calling up variables. Now this isn't very interesting because it's just calling variables that we've typed in from up above. But now imagine if these were variables that we were calling from forms or from databases. So for example, if you log into an e-commerce site and it says, hello, Chris, it's finding your name in a database and the rest of this is populated very much like this, and then it plops your name in that's associated with that variable. So that's why it's really cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a file save as, and you can go ahead and name this one variables. And remember, it's a .php. I have placed mine in a class 6 folder and called exercises so that I can separate it from the lab. So we're going to call this one variables. We're going to save. Now remember, we can't view our PHP locally. We have to upload it to our server. So I'm going to go over to my FileZilla, which is already up. I have class 6. I have exercises. It's in the exercises folder. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to navigate to where I need to be. Okay, so now I'm inside of my class 6 exercises folder, and I have my file called variables. I'm going to upload that, make sure they're the same on both the left and right, so you're getting them in the right place, and then I'm going to go out to my browser. So now I'm out at my browser, and I have to navigate out to my site. And so I know that I'm at, I know where I'm at, I just apparently can't type it. IsaacsandK.StoutMartech. I happen to have all of these in a folder called DMT475, and it's in a folder called Class 6, and it's in the folder called Exercises, and it's just, the file name itself is called variables.php. There is the code that I created. Notice you don't see any of the PHP. If I right-click on this and do a View Page Source, I can go in here and it's just going to show me my HTML. Because remember, PHP is a server-side language. So here it is where it says, hello, my name is, and this was the variable that got pulled. I graduated from, there was that variable, in, and there was that variable. I'm here because, and there's the final variable. So that's what the first exercise is. It's really just getting you used to how to work with variables. I do have a follow-up if you choose to watch this that I'm going to just show you an alternative way of coding this exact same thing, where if you're more comfortable with HTML, it might be a better option for you. It doesn't really matter. Both of these are perfectly acceptable as far as practice goes. So let's go back, for those of you who want to stick with me. We're going to create an alternative to this. So we're going to call this, I'm going to do a file save as, because I want to keep all the variables and stuff that are there. And as you can see, I was messing around with this earlier. We're going to call this variables-alt for alternative. And I'm going to save it in that same exercises folder. Okay, so here I am at my new file called variables-alt.php. This is exactly the same as what we had before, but I'm going to get rid of this information down here, but we'll leave it and kind of manipulate it as we go because I want to use it as a reference. So right after, I want to keep my variables exactly as they are, but right after them, I'm going to close my PHP here. And yes, there are going to be some syntax errors and it's not going to be happy, but that's okay because we're going to fix this as we go. So this is my PHP. And if you're more comfortable working with HTML, you can go back to using straight HTML because we are outside of these PHP commands. So that means I can get rid of the echoes at the beginning and those quotation marks because otherwise they're going to display. So this is at the beginning of my line. But now notice how everything's not color-coded. It's not the way it should be. Well, I'm not going to be concatenating anything anymore. What I'm going to be doing is inserting my PHP. So instead of the quotation marks and the period for the concatenation, I'm going to go in and open up a new PHP statement. And then I'm going to say echo because I want it to display whatever is in the my name variable, and at the end of that I'm going to put the semicolon because that's the end of the line of code, and I'm going to close my PHP. Then I can get rid of these other little pieces that are remnants of the PHP. So this is what our new lines will basically look like. They are HTML with PHP embedded in them. So I'm going to go to my second line and do the same thing. I'm going to get rid of the quotation marks and that period, replace it with opening up a new PHP statement. I need to type in the word echo. This is my command. And at the end of my variable, I will place the semicolon. And I'll put a space and I'll close my PHP statement. I'll get rid of the little concatenation marks. And I'm going to do the same thing here. This one gets 2 in one line. Get your echo, and at the end, put our semicolon, a space, and close our PHP, and then we can get rid of these little remnants from PHP from before. And we're going to go on to our last one. So we're going to do the same thing here, where we're going to get rid of this, open up PHP instead. We're going to put echo, we're going to put a semicolon at the end of that variable, space, and then close our PHP, get rid of those remnants. I want the closing paragraph, and there it is. Now we can get rid of this PHP closing because it's not needed anymore because this PHP is self-contained here, and here, here, and here, as well as up here. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and I'm going to go back out to my FileZilla, and I'm going to upload this. Then I'm going to go back out to my web browser. And this time, my address up here is almost exact. It's just I know I need to come to the end of that file name and add a -alt for alt, but it's still .php. Click enter, and it looks the same. So I go back and forth. Here I am at variables.php. Here I am at variables-alt.php. So as you can see, either way that you code them, whether it's with the PHP embedded or within having it all within the PHP, It doesn't really matter. It's whatever you become most comfortable with doing. So that's the end of our first exercise.